South Africa will not be invited to the G20 Sherpas meeting that will take place in Washington on the 15th and the 16th of December 2025. Now, the exclusion of South Africa from the first US Sherpas meeting is not unexpected, as Pretoria was anticipating some hostility. This after the US took over the G20 presidency on the 1st of December 2025. Now, the country is now expected to channel its energies towards the 2027 summit in the United Kingdom. The US will host the G20 Leaders Summit after its midterm elections next year. The outcome of that election is likely to dominate the news cycle and overshadow the G20 summit. All right, we've roped in Professor Christopher Isike from the Department of Political Sciences and Director of the African Center for the Study of the United States, University of Pretoria. Thank you so much, sir, for your time this afternoon. So, Washington has made it clear that South Africa will not be invited to the Sherpas meeting before the end of the year. South Africa did not anticipate, or did rather anticipate, some hostility, as we've been saying in the intro. So it doesn't really come as a surprise. But, Prof, when you consider that, South Africa is not only a long-standing member of the G20, but it is also one of the founding members of this forum, what message does this send?
Well, it is a very unusual development for a founding G20 member to be excluded. It is significant, for South Africa, especially given the fact that the Sherpas meetings are where the real work of the G20, happens. So being left out means that South Africa is not able to shape the agenda for the next G20. It's not able to influence any of the communiques that will come out, and not able to, advance some of the decisions reached at its own G20 in South Africa, which we had recently. And this is not good for South Africa, but also not good for the US in many ways.
And I mean, when you've listened to what President Cyril Ramaphosa said on Sunday, placing a lot of weight on multilateralism and South Africa's global standing in his address, something that most leaders, in fact, echoed during the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg. Countries like France, India, and the UK repeatedly praising Pretoria for championing interest in the global south. I want to just touch on the point that you make in terms of how difficult it will be then for South Africa to navigate some of the issues that were addressed, from climate finance to equitable vaccine access, particularly from the countries like the global south, developing countries. How will it then navigate that terrain with this uncertainty?
Well, it will be difficult, to be a challenge, because those issues are issues that Mr. Trump does not like, so he's going to definitely push an agenda that is opposite to some of these things. So it will be a real challenge. However, the good thing is that South Africa is still part of the Troika. In 2027, the G20 goes to the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom participated actively in the G20. South Africa is committed to the ideals of, inclusivity, multilateralism, solidarity, some of the things that South Africa, pushed forward. And some of the decisions that were reached, the ones on debt restructuring, climate change, things that the UK also believes in. So I think it is safe to say that none of the agendas pushed by South Africa would be implemented by the United States under its presidency. But everything is transient, so it's not shouldn't be too much to worry about.
Given the fact that we've highlighted, of course, the United States midterm elections, what does that then place on G20's visibility, but also just United States posture on South Africa? What are we likely to see?
Well, I've said before that the president of the United States, and this is how we must try to separate the actors as it concerns South Africa. The president of the United States is an actor, of course, is a tsunami of his own, but the Congress and America as a society is another actor. And I think that, we must find strategies to play with the two actors. And there are times where they align, and there are times where, they don't align. Now, in 2026, Mr. Trump is very likely going to be a lame duck president. So most of the things he would do would really not matter much and can be pushed back on by Congress, especially the Democrats Party wins the House back or even the Senate. So like you said, the G20 will be overshadowed by those elections, but it will still be important because a lot of the G20 countries want to go to the US and try and push for, all kinds of deals for themselves.
Yeah. Just in terms of what we've also been earlier saying, that President Ramaphosa, noted that South Africa will now refocus its energy on the 2027 G20 summit under the United Kingdom's presidency. What are some of the strategic movements it should start making now, as it tries to avoid further marginalization, particularly from some of the powerhouses that we've seen descending on Johannesburg?
Well, I think that South Africa can use this whole episode to strengthen calls for the need to reform global governance structures, because now it is becoming clear that it's been politicized. The G20 was supposed to be a technical forum, neutral of politics, but it has become very politicized and polarized. We are seeing great power rivalry, especially between the US, China, and Russia, shaping even technical processes like the Sherpa meeting. So what I think South Africa should begin to focus on now is to leverage the support from other quarters, other partners, the BRICS countries, the African Union, for example. It's time for Africa to rally around South Africa and begin to make it clear that they could also think of boycotting, the G20 in Florida if South Africa is ill-treated, but the point is for South Africa to keep its focus on those key issues that it aligns with, the G20 of 2027 that the UK agrees with, and pursue those in terms of trying to get consensus around many of those issues for implementation.
And I mean, you mentioned the AU. What's their position? What should their position be? We've been hearing a lot of the time from particularly your world leaders highlighting the fact that, from South Africa's diplomacy perspective, they've been really good at being the bridge builders, between your developed nations as well as your developing nations. The AU should come out strong, I would imagine, against this non-invite.
Yeah, because what the US is really trying to do here is to express its unhappiness with South Africa's independence, kind of autonomy in its foreign policy engagements, especially in the last couple of years. And I think that the US would want to use this to signal to other countries in Africa that if you step out of line, if we see you if you allow us to frame you as anti-West and anti-American, we would, come at you. It's a message that is being sent not just to South Africa but the continent as a whole. And I think that the African Union, considering that if South Africa doesn't participate in as much as it should in the G20 in the US, it will also affect the African Union, especially in its first year of being an implementing member. So it is in its best interest to quickly come together and also begin to signal back to the United States that they are in solidarity with South Africa and that they may also consider, boycotting it as a whole if South Africa is ill-treated. Because remember, like I said, if they succeed in doing this to South Africa, the plan would be to cherry pick African countries and invite them to the AU and hopefully, to the G20 in the US, and hopefully use that to divide and conquer, as has always been, this imperialist way of dealing with the continent. So I think it's high time we begin to look at ourselves and look at what strengths we have, and try to use some of the diplomatic instruments we have, coming together, speaking speaking with one voice, having a common African position on this, and using our critical minerals and the access to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area as leverage to try and push through some of our positions on these issues.
Yeah, I mean, I've been scouring just the news to see if the AU has issued out a statement. I haven't seen such. I mean, it is quite interesting to see what they will say, particularly when you've been hearing from world leaders saying, Africa, it's your time, seize the moment. But Prof, thank you so much for your time. This is all the time we have for you today. Professor Christopher Isike from the Department of Political Sciences and Director of the African Center for the Study of the United States. All right.